Hey guys, this is Matt with Full Force Metalworks. We're here and we have a 2015-19 Subaru Outback, and we're going to be installing our Defender Series front bumper. We'll go ahead and get started taking this bumper apart. First, what we'll do is we got about 18 or so clips in the whole bumper, but we'll start by removing the top ones. I use a flathead screwdriver. Pop them up a little bit. Don't pull them all the way, just leave them up a little bit, pry under there, and they come right out. Next thing we gotta do is start pulling all the clips off from underneath. They can be a little bit more jammed with mud and sometimes a wee bit harder to pull out, but they'll get there. All right, getting ready to pull this last clip. Once again, these ones are a little bit tough, but all right, once you got all the clips off, the bumper has a little support in there, so it's got a little bit of tension in there. Make sure you disconnect the lights before you start yanking on the bumper. All right, so now we got all the clips off of the bumper and our lights disconnected. We're gonna get ready to pull this bumper off. Behind these lights is a little plastic strip, kind of locks the bumper in. There's also one along this connection to the fender, but get your fingers in there, pull off, and it pops right out. There we go. So next we'll be removing the crash bar. Takes a 12 millimeter socket, a 6/6 extension. I'm using an impact, but you can use a ratchet. 4 bolts on this side, 4 bolts on that side. When you're pulling these bolts off, don't worry about it falling. They got a little lip in there that supports this while you're doing it, so you don't have to worry about the whole unit falling after you get the last bolt off. All right, we gotta pull out these 2 10 millimeter bolts before we get the crash bar off. Pull those off. Next, we got to pull off some plastic stuff. This guy here has a little plug-in. We got to pop that out of there. Pull that off. And get this guy a couple 10 millimeter bolts. Then that guy comes off of there.
Go ahead.
To remove this, there's 3 10 millimeter bolts from the bottom. Then it has a couple clips in there. I believe that points straight in. There we go. Next, we're removing this clip here. It has a Phillips screwdriver in the back, 10 millimeter up front, or Phillips, but I prefer to use a 10 millimeter. Once those are out, there's little clips in there to hold it in. They're kind of tough to get out. A lot of times they break. And they didn't this time. It's good. After you pull the clip off, make sure to put the 10 millimeter back in place, because that also holds your light. All right, next we gotta pop this little guy out of there. It's not really a clip, it just kind of has to go out of the way so we can get our mounting plate and these little guys, these little foam pieces. One last thing to prep for installing the bumper. These little horns, we gotta bend them just like that. There's one on both sides. Lastly, we have this little tank here, your washer fluid tank. There's a couple options. A little bit, this area is still semi-exposed when the bumper's on, so you can leave it as is. You'll see the washer tank. You can spray paint it black. It hides it quite well. Or if you're really serious and want the absolute most clearance possible, you can get the relocation set up and get this in there. It does shrink the volume of washer fluid that you can have, so I try not to do that unless the customer absolutely wants it. One more thing you got to remove before you can install the bumper. These little guys underneath the headlights. 3 10mm bolts. So now that we got all the bumper removed, the plastics removed, the bumper cut down, ready to put back in, we're going to install this bumper. When you get the bumper, it's going to come with the grills on here and all the hardware. There's 20 Allen head screws in there. You're going to need a 5/32 Allen head to pull those off. Get those taken off so we can get access the 4 mounting bolts behind them. We will, if I can have air hop in here, we'll get this thing installed. Should just slide right in place. Push your weight up against it so your shoulder holds it in there, and get some hardware started. Get these bolts started so it can hold itself up. Alright, we got the driver's side set in place. Now we're going to lift up the passenger side and get it set in place where we want it. Nice tight gaps over there up against the fender. Alright, so we are getting ready to cut the bumper on this 2015 to 19 Outback. The spot you're going to cut is going to be from the bottom corner here in a straight line to the inside quarter there. So it'll be a straight line through there, but we're not going to cut the exact line. We're going to cut down from about a 1/2 inch, get the whole thing cut, and then when we get it on the car, we can take it off and on, fit it, trim it, make sure we can get it just right. So start by putting on some masking tape so we don't destroy it. Try to protect that chrome grille so it doesn't get all scratched up, because we're going to be running our saw right down there. Alright, now we got it taped off. It's pretty ugly, but that doesn't matter. Push in there with your fingers so you can make sure you can find the radius. And we're not going to cut in the middle of the radius. We're going to cut right down here at the bottom of the radius. And then over on this end, you can put a straight edge from the bottom of this chrome grill and extend it out to about right there. Measure, I'd say roughly 1/4 inch off of there, and then go straight from there to that point there. Okay, and that's our 1/2 inch off our cut line right there. And then we'll trim it up. It'll probably end up about the center of that radius, and it'll probably come from right there. But we're going to cut down this line and then all the way across the bottom of the grill and up the other side. So I'm getting ready to cut this. I like to use a cutoff wheel on a 6-inch grinder because it's what I'm used to and it's what I have in the shop. But you can use whatever you want. It might be hard, but you could use a utility knife to cut most of this. It's going to take you a long time, or a saw, whatever you use. But this is what I like to use. Sends off some hot plastic, so wear some gloves. Once it's cut, I use a cutoff wheel like I was saying, so it ends up with all these little burrs and hot plastic flung everywhere, so I clean it up with a razor knife. Try not to cut my finger. Alright, so we got our grill cut down. We test fit it once and we liked our cut, so we took our tape off, cleaned up the edges with the utility knife, and we're getting ready to slide this one in there. This one's a little bit tougher to slide in because it does have the grill guard, but it just slides back in. Pull these out because they snap in over the top. Other side's in. There we go. Now we got it all snapped into place. All right, so now if you were installing lights, you'd install them into the grills, bolt them to the tabs, and then run your wiring through there and wire it all up. This particular customer has his lights on order and they're not here yet, so we're just going to install them and he's going to get his lights done later. This takes a 532 Allen bolt like I talked about earlier. Last thing we got to do is cut this inner fender. Cut just above the bottom of the bumper area and come down at an angle to that inside corner there. Going around this tank, I'm probably going to swoop it a little bit to protect it from the road grime from the tire. Other side, we'll do a straight line. We will do the same thing here. We'll cut just above it. That way it can be tucked in there. Nice and tight. All right, that's it. We got everything installed. Grill's put back in tight, hood shut, everything's good to go. Now this thing's ready to go home.